The Pit Press Podcast.
Get a chance to see Ehrlicher, the linebacker, who they say has the potential to be the best defensive player they've ever had in New Mexico.
Looking down the middle, throwing into coverage, and it's picked off by New Mexico. Hear the no, but Christian Washington says yes, yes, yes! Christian Washington! I don't need to take a knee. I want 6. Touchdown, New Mexico.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Podcast. As I fidget with my mic there, my bad. My name is Ryan Tamori, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Ed Nunez. He's the voice of Western New Mexico and a Lobo fan since 1970. I messed it up there again, Ed. I'm sorry. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well, Ryan. Always good to be on the Pit Press Podcast.
I mean, for me, as I continue to say, we actually have college football this week. We have games that count on Saturday, and if you're a nerd like I am, it's week 0, which I still think is stupid. Just start the season either this week or give me a full slate. Don't tease me. We are now less than 2 weeks away from the UNM football season opener, where they will go to Texas A&M, SEC country, where they are 38-point underdogs. And if you were to put a $100 bet on them to win, you would win almost $500,000 before tax at plus 4,000. And the over-under, I think, shot down to 49.5. Those are things that interest me. So in the good spirit of talking football, our next guest won the NMBA, I almost said NBA there, NMBA, New Mexico Broadcasters Association, Sports Broadcaster of the Year 3 times in a row while he was an anchor reporter at KOB TV here in New Mexico. That's our NBC affiliate here in Albuquerque. He's the former host of New Mexico Game Day on Friday nights on KOB. I don't know if you missed that or you do or don't miss that, Brandon, but I'll ask you that in a second. He just left KOB and is in the last week. And in the last week was announced his new position as the assistant director for creative services for football. And that was, I think, in a big part to UNM head football coach Danny Gonzales. His name is Brandon Ortega. Brandon, how are you? And congratulations on the new gig, man.
Thank you very much. It's great to be on with you again. Last time we did this was basketball season. It's awesome to be hopping on with both of you now. Ed wasn't on the last time. Talking football.
Yeah, now that I realize, we did have you on for basketball season. I think we were talking a little bit more women's basketball, but anyway, do you miss doing New Mexico Game Day or no?
I do miss game day for sure. That was probably the part of the job that was the most appealing, especially following someone like JP Marietta, who did it for over 20 years and is a broadcasting legend out here. Lee Faria, the trusty Lobo insider, has been there for over 30 years. So, I mean, you're talking about joining somewhere that, people stuck for a long time. And it was a lot of fun to work there for 5 years, do game day, have high school teams come into the studio. Only a brief period during COVID, we had to switch the format and people weren't in studio for a while. And then we brought it back at the end of last spring. So, man, to say the least, it was a blast. And I do miss game day for sure. But this new gig has a lot of different things about it that are better for my family, and we're enjoying that so far. Only a couple weeks in, so it's been a blast so far.
I think anybody in the quote unquote media can understand that it's quite the grind. My friends used to always be like, "Why are you?" or ask me like, "Why are you at a bar at 12:30 on a Monday?" And I was like, "Because it's my Saturday." And that was the PC version. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. I can't even talk today either. I think the humidity is getting to me. But with you, which is an oddity here in New Mexico, but you did have 5 good years as a sports anchor at KOB TV4. What was the motivation at this point in your career to make such a move to UNM? I mean, you kind of elaborated on that a little bit. I know it's probably a little bit less stress with a wife and a kid, but could you elaborate on that more?
It's all about timing, Ryan, because my contract was coming up and a couple of months before July, so that would have been maybe around May and June, I was interviewing Danny Gonzales, the head coach of the Lobos football team. And after our interview, we were doing like camp promotional stuff for the camps they do with kids. And, Danny, for anyone that's never met him, he is truly a genuine guy. And when you're around him enough and he learns what your kids' names are and your wife's names are, he asks about your family. And we had this great conversation after the interview, just talking about life and talking about, he asked me if my family and I were thinking of sticking in Albuquerque because it had been 5 years and yeah, he just like was asking me about me, which like how many head coaches in Division I take 10, 15 minutes after an interview just to hang out with someone from the media to ask about their lives. So anyway, moving forward, we had a conversation about how my contract was coming up soon, but I was definitely thinking about staying. And then, yeah, the timing was just kind of crazy in July. I was starting to think outside the box of TV, like, all right, well, you know what could be out there? Yeah, I just started thinking that way. And Coach was one of a handful of people I reached out to in early July. Hey, if you hear about anything going on in Albuquerque, job wise, you feel like I could be a good fit for, let me know. Not thinking that Coach had an opening, because like we're in July, I thought their staff was totally full. I didn't think there was openings with Lobo football. So Coach was one of like a handful of people I reached out to, just starting to look outside TV. And it just so happened the very next week, I was interviewing him leading up to the Mountain West Media Summit, and he let me know about the opening they had for creative services and doing video work and working full-time with the football team. It's a football job. And I was immediately interested, talked to the wife for a couple of days. That's who he had to recruit more than me, to be honest. Like, it's a big change going from the position I had to the position I have now. But there's this long list of pros, mainly that I would be home for dinner a lot more often. And I would have Sundays off for the first time in my adult life. I have worked Sundays over 12 years in a row. As a broadcaster, I was always the weekend guy. So there was a long list of things that were better for the family. And so, yeah, my wife was convinced after a couple of days and told Coach that she's on board. I'm on board. We shook hands, and then we were off and running to where we are now. Now I'm working with them full time.
Once again, I get the Sunday thing. And number two is, I talk about this a lot on this show. I had the privilege of covering Mike Loxley a billion years ago, and here you go, Ed, and you hear that name again. I had to take a step back, and when I finally met Danny, and we cover UNM, but and I'm repeating myself. If you have listened to this podcast, I say it all the time. I am glass half empty kind of guy. I'm negative Nancy. I don't know. I'm always skeptical. I'm already questioning stuff, and it's not that I'm an old man. It's starting to get really bad. I had to realize, and I had to tell myself this, and it was in Vegas. Rocky Long was great. I don't really know what Bob Davie was. I've heard some negative things, but they did win. They had 2 or 3 winning years. Obviously, he was part of that Boise win and that bowl win.
Early on, they had a good run. Early on.
Yeah. I just have to realize that that not every head coach is Mike Loxley. And when I finally met Danny, and I've sort of spoken to him briefly, not a lot, but briefly after meeting him, like in Vegas at the Mountain West Conference Football Media Days, and then on this podcast when Ed and I had him on. And it's the damnedest. It's the truth. Like he is I don't know. He's a genuine guy. He's a nice guy. And for the first time, probably in 20 years, I really want the UNM football team to win. So I'm glad you said that with the genuine thing, because I don't know. That's how I feel anyway. We're interviewing you, but that caught my attention, and my radar went up on that. But what are your main responsibilities I think you kind of elaborated on it, but what are your main responsibilities for this new position? And if the time need be, would you be maybe shooting some video for other sports at UNM?
Yeah. So yeah, football is the concentration. It is a job with the football team, and it's to create video content every day. And this position, I believe, was created last year, and they focused more on highlights. They focused more on just on the field stuff last year. And when this job opened up, and when Coach thought of me, he liked, and I don't want to speak for him too much, but I think he liked the fit of me coming in and being able to tell stories and being able to use my reporting background. And so that's what we've done so far. We've definitely done football related stuff. Like there's highlight reels on the social media pages, but I've made an emphasis on digging in to personalities more and digging into stories. And I've only been there for a few weeks, but in the short time we've been there together, I've mic'd up guys every single practice. I think people like the hard knocks angle of football practices where you can hear what they're saying on the sidelines. We can hear exactly what it sounds like on the field. The mic'd up stuff is fun, putting a wireless mic on them. And then I've just been paying attention to what's going on with these players as much as I can the first few weeks and the families that are around. You got so many local guys on this team from the city of Albuquerque, from Rio Rancho, and around the state. The first thing that popped up storytelling wise for me in the first few days, Dorian Lewis, the running back from Cleveland High School, his sister is 8 years old. She comes to practices as often as she can. And when she does, she has a camera in her hand and she takes pictures of not just Dorian, but the whole team because her uncle John is a big photographer in town. So I was hanging out with her and then realized that she was Dorian's sister and that she likes to take pictures. And I was just like, boom, we got our first family angle story. Great brother sister bond. Yeah, an 8-year-old girl who wants to be around her brother and also take pictures. I thought that was a cool little angle of it too. I think my job moving forward is just to create content, but just to pay attention to the stories and try to highlight the stories like I'm still a reporter. But also like think of outside the box stuff. There's a lot of I must have had 100 different things written down before day one, starting with the Lobos of little segments we could try with the players and with coaches. And we're really just barely scratching the surface right now. And I'm excited at the direction we're taking it for this first season with me working with the Lobos.
You know, Brandon, it seems like a good fit and a great opportunity, and it's great that coach can, things happen sometimes when you're looking, and this opportunity fell right in your lap, and I think you're a good fit. I saw that piece on Dorian Lewis and his sister, and I watched it twice. I interviewed Dorian Lewis years ago on the NMOT sports show we used to do, and he's as humble as can be. He really is. Great kid. And I know John Vestel real well, great guy. And I got a lot out of the brother-sister relationship because, I'm an emotional guy, right, about what sports does. And she says, I love him. I love him taking pictures. He's got his arm around her. Great job on that. There's a human interest.
Thank you.
Right? There's a human interest story there. And Dorian, we want to see him. We asked Zach V. Hill last week, how's he looking in camp? Zach said he's looking good. We're looking to see, he's a local guy, played great at Cleveland, tore up his knee. So, we're looking to see him make a comeback. I really enjoyed that story. We're in the digital age of sports and marketing. What role does your new job play in that?
Yeah, I mean, just to pump the social media pages as much as we can and fill them, like you said, with the storytelling and fill them with, I think, as much content as we can that really pull the curtain back on the football program. I think ideally for me, by the time the season's over, when I look back at all the things we post, if we could have more things related to the players off the field than on the field, then that would be a successful first season with them because there's over 100 kids on this team. And I was just talking about this in an athletic department meeting today. Every single student athlete in every single sport at UNM and really around the country, every single one of them have a story. And it's just a matter of tapping into what story you want to tell. What are they majoring in? Do they come from some adversity that they'd like to share with viewers? What sort of career aspirations do they have? What else are they doing at school besides playing their sport? what classes are they taking? I mean, there's so many directions you can go with every student athlete. So yeah, I think social media wise, that's where my concentration is. My goal is to every single day I'm working to create 2 or 3 different things we can be posting every single day, and then we what you call can them for to spread out the content throughout the week. Yeah, so yeah, digitally, it's social media 100%. They've got pretty good followings on Twitter. Instagram is a big deal. I feel like in the college demographic, Instagram's become a big emphasis. You got Facebook. Those are the main 3 that I try to pay attention to. There's what Threads now. You got TikTok. Snapchat was never really something I took to too much. There's
still don't know
so
what the
much
hell-
social media stuff. Yeah, and I try to keep up with the ones that I'm familiar with.
I still don't know what the hell Threads is.
It's like a off thing of Instagram. It's like it's related to Instagram, I guess, but I don't know. I signed up for it only because I knew I probably should, but I literally have touched it twice in like a month.
So on all these platforms that you're using, you have carte blanche from the university to be the creator. Creativity is on you, right? You can be as creative as you want.
I am as creative as I want when I am out shooting and when I am editing. What the process we've done so far, Chase Christensen heads that department. He's been doing a fantastic job with the Lobo broadcasts and all the content they put on social media for years. I don't know how long he's been there now, but he's been there quite a bit now. And what our process is, I shoot things every day, I edit them, and when they're done on my end, I send to Chase. Chase will sometimes add music. He ended up adding music to the Dorian Lewis and his sister's piece, Kyoko. He added some music. He adds little graphics. You see their names. And it's been a great process so far, because at KOB, I would find my own stories, shoot them, edit them, write them, have to put them in the rundown, and then be on camera. Right now, I get to do like half of those jobs now with the Lobos, because I just get to focus more on finding content, shooting it, and editing it. And then Chase and Frank Mercogliano, who's the SID, the Sports Information Director of football, I think between them two, they're kind of figuring out when things get posted and what kinds of pictures and videos and stories they want to be posting every day. So I don't have to necessarily make those decisions. I do get to like put in my 2 cents. The other day, what was it, Friday? The Lobos had some players go out doing teaming up and going to do fun activities. One of them being a paintball group. Heath Ridenauer, the running backs coach, former Cleveland football coach, state champion. He took a group out to paintball, and I tagged along with them. Typically, when I shoot a story, we'll plan to post it in like a couple of days or like even a week later. And because that was happening that day, and it was like a specific thing, they were on this Friday taking a few hours to go have some fun. I suggested to Chase, hey, why don't we just post this today? Because this is like a specific thing about Friday and them having like team bonding activities. So I turned that around after I shot it in about an hour. I turned it around, sent it to Chase, and then he ended up posting it. So there's definitely some collaboration going on, but Chase and Frank, I think, are making more decisions per se. I just get to focus on the content and creating content,
which is still very important. It really is. In your mind, how does your role impact the programs that you work with?
I don't know. This is a whole nother side of sports that I've never got to work in. I've always been in the media, so I've always done content that, at the end of the day, like any content I would do for the Lobos was promotional for them, whether it be a story about a player or a game coming up or statistics stories, breaking down highlights, breaking down stats. Those were always promotional for the university, but that was just one of a bunch of teams I was covering throughout the state. So now I get to just put all my effort and focus on one team at one school. And I don't know, Ed. I mean, I think at the end of the day, posting as much as we can on social media helps with recruiting. I think it helps just show the community in Albuquerque and around the state that are following the Lobos on a daily basis, it's ultimately to show what these guys are all about beyond the football field. That's my big focus. Is I'm trying to learn every single day about a couple of guys. Hey, what's your interest? Like I just learned that someone on the team plays guitar, and you guys can see the instruments behind me. I love music. So now I've got a million different ideas of what I'd like to do with that player and showcase not just his guitar playing ability, but like what kind of music he likes, what his parents listen to, and how that rubbed off on him. Because I know I grew up driving in the morning with my dad, classic rock stations blasting in the car, and heading home with my mom listening to pop stations, and we were always singing in the car. I mean, everyone's got, when it comes to music, I jump at every chance to talk about music because everyone likes music. Not everyone likes the same music, but everyone's got a story about music. So yeah, I'm ranting a little bit about the music stuff, but definitely I want to help showcase as much about the players as I can throughout the season. And then I'm still learning what this position is in the offseason too, because then they shift into full recruiting mode. And the football team is still doing things in the offseason. So when the season's over, I'm looking forward to seeing what this position entails with football during the offseason. So, I mean, it's hard to not get ahead of myself because as a broadcaster and working at KOB, I was always planning weeks ahead, months ahead. I mean, Lee Faria, literally from the time he gets back from the Mountain West basketball tournament every year, the day he gets back, he's already thinking about next year and what kinds of stories he wants to do. So for me, the biggest challenge has been, okay, don't think about months ahead. Just worry about this week. Worry about this day, how many stories you can find this day. And I think that's been my biggest adjustment is like, yeah, just trying to focus on the now instead of the later, because it's easy to get ahead and get excited about things you could be doing later. But I mean, the season is now. I mean, we were 12 days away from kickoff in A&M. So we're trying to do as much content as we can before the opener. And yeah, and just showcase these guys on multiple levels.
And there'll be a lot more stories coming as soon as the season starts. You know, we've got a question for you about the team. Head coach Danny Gonzales has talked about a stronger, more athletic team. I think one of the things that I got out of the press conference a couple of weeks ago, twitchy athletes, we've got a swing in our hammer. We're a much stronger team. You know, so I'm envisioning things. He said after 2020 and the COVID, it took him a while to strengthen the team. He feels they're in a good place now. What have you seen so far in your times at practice? What have you seen so far?
As Coach likes to say, they look bigger off the bus now. They look better off the bus. Like they were a smaller team those first few years with Coach G, and they've definitely adapted to the transfer portal. They have almost 40 newcomers on the team, which is the most Coach Gonzales has ever had in his entire coaching career, 20 plus years of being either assistant or head coach now. They're bigger. They're stronger for sure. It's all about chemistry. You know, can you mesh? I mean, they got a brand new starting quarterback now in Dylan Hopkins. Can you mesh him with the guys that are back from the last few years and also are incoming with him? I'll tell you this. They're the most talented team they've had since Danny Gonzales took over. I know they're the most talented, but talent doesn't always result in more wins. So can they mesh together? They've got a new offensive coordinator in Bryant Vincent, who I think has an unbelievable track record, who, I mean, potentially could have been the head coach at UAB if they decided not to hire Trent Dilfer. He led them to a bowl win last year as the interim head coach and did a great job interim throughout the season. I mean, there's so many new faces, brand new offensive staff for the most part, tons of new players. But yeah, I mean, every year they've been here, the talent's been increasing. But I think from year 3 to this year, they made the biggest jump in talent and meshing these core kids that have been around since 2020, 2021, the ones that have stuck around like your Luke Weissongs and your Tavian Combs, who I think is primed for a big year this year. Big fan of Tavian. Yeah, there's a great mix. Dante Martin, who was in at Media Days in Vegas. There's some talent. There's some experience. They added a little bit of both in the transfer portal. Some guys that have been around 3 or 4 years and and some transfers that are still young but have a lot of potential. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there. There's potential for them to make a big turnaround, but a lot of things have to align. You got to stay healthy, and it's going to be. I gotta say, I gotta admit, I'm excited to go on the road with them. I've never got to go on the road in my 12, 13 years professionally working in sports on a full-time basis. I've never got to travel with a team. I'm really excited to see what that's like, win or lose, going there, coming back, the ins and I mean, it's crazy. My life is like a Hard Knocks episode every day. I'm like, I get to sit in on meetings. I get to sit in and practice. I get to walk anywhere I want on the field. Yeah, this opportunity is really, really exciting for a lot of reasons, for my family, to try something new while I'm still pretty young. I'm still in my 30s. So, yeah, I mean, I love working in sports, and I love, you know, looking at this team from a whole nother lens, you know, I mean, essentially being a part of the team now on a full-time basis. So yeah, I think I ran it a little bit too right there, Ryan.
No, that's
So,
okay. That's okay.
yeah.
No, you're good. That's the floor is yours. Now I lost, dude, I suck today. I don't like to say that I suck today. I'm like losing my train of thought. I've never traveled. That was like my dream was to be a beat reporter for college football, nothing else. I mean, yeah, if somebody would offer me like a baseball beat or a college basketball or NBA beat or even an NFL beat, yeah, obviously the NFL beat, but I've traveled, but I've never traveled with a team like what you're about to embark in. And I think that's funny with your comment about it being a episode of Hard Knocks every day.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty awesome. I think that's awesome.
It's been a blast, man. It's been a lot of fun already, and we haven't even played a game yet. It's been a blast.
I mean, I was pumped. Again, I've done this before, not on this scale, but I hadn't done it in years, and so when with what we started here and how far we've come in just a short period of time in 8 months. I always joke that when I fly, even if I'm going on vacation or nothing business, I'm like, I feel so important when I fly, even though I despise flying. And you probably saw me on the airplane. I don't like it. Anyway, I won't even go down what I was about to say, but I feel so important when I flew. And this last time I flew, even though it was on Southwest to Vegas, I felt so important. And then
getting to go on assignment on the road. For the media days. Yeah, for sure, dude. It's so much. Look, from my entire broadcast career, if I ever got to drive 4 or 5 hours somewhere, or once in a while take a plane to go on assignment. I mean, I'm lucky that my whole sports career, it's been one of those scenarios where it doesn't feel like work, because I really enjoy what I do, working in sports and the fashions I have. It's all I've ever wanted to do, work in sports. So to get to this kind of different opportunity is, I'm feeling very, very fortunate and very, very thankful to Coach G for giving me the opportunity.
No, that's very cool. I mean, I grew up the same way, and I'm still kind of doing it now. I might not be in New York, but I've got Ed and Eric every day. I'm going to skip the next question, then I'll backtrack to it, because you were talking about Brian Vincent, the new offensive coordinator. We've had you were here. You've been here 5 years. You were here for Terry Wilson, and then I jokingly call him Kendrick Lamar, which is pretty bad. His name Miles. I think it was Miles Kendrick last year, who I think had a lot of the tools to be. God, I hate saying that. To be a very good quarterback. And this isn't a knock on him, I just don't think he was a big guy.
Well, look, the offensive line was just not getting it done last year, and Coach G, from the first press conference after the season, that's what he addressed. We got to add depth to the offensive line. We got to get bigger and stronger on the offensive line. Like, he felt like they had some talent in the offensive line. They just couldn't stay healthy. And then the guys that were staying healthy, they weren't gelling, and they just couldn't protect their quarterbacks. And so I think Miles got a raw deal, because if you don't got an O-line taking care of you, how can you succeed?
Yeah, no, there was nothing a knock on him. because he showed some flashes like against UNLV and I think Maine, he looked good. And UTEP, I mean, that UTEP team, that UTEP game last year reminded me of like the Rocky Long Lobos, which obviously Danny's a disciple of. But I'm going to kind of change how I ask this question because I love that you interjected there. Who is more important this year? And I think I know the answer: the offensive line or Dylan Hopkins. And what potential do you see for the ceiling for Dylan Hopkins, the quarterback transfer from UAB?
For sure. It starts with the offensive line, 100%. They are bigger, they are stronger, they are deeper at that position. I mean, there are some big, beefy guys on that O-line. You got some 6'5", 6'6", even bigger. Like when you talk about their tight ends they have now too, that the new guys they brought in, that tight end group, I think might be the most underrated group on the whole team that everyone is sleeping on. Trace Bruckler in particular, I think could be an all-conference player. But getting back to the O-line and Dylan Hopkins, Dylan has the second most starts among Mountain West quarterbacks behind Cordero at San Jose State. So the guy has played a bunch. He has not only the right experience, but he's got the right mojo, moxie that guys gravitate around. He's a very goofy dude, but also all business on the field. Dylan's definitely going to be setting the tone. If the O-line does their job and they leave it up to him, Dylan could have a big year for sure. I think they got some running backs behind him. I talk about the most talent you've seen from a Lobo team under Danny Gonzales. This might be the most deepest, collectively talented running back group they've had. I mean, I was a big fan of Nate Jones, and unfortunately, he decided to move on from football after last season. They lose their leading rusher, but I still feel like they bring back. They now have the most talented group there. I mean, we talked about Dorian Lewis. You had Zach Vigil on not that long ago. Ja'Cory, I always forget both of his Merritt is his Krosky Merritt. Yeah, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. Man, he might be the breakout star of the whole Mountain West. He is turning heads at every single practice. He is so much fun to watch, so much fun to be around. We mic'd him up recently, and that should be dropping on the UNM Lobo FB pages any day now. It starts with Dylan for sure. When the whole line's doing their job, how is Dylan Hopkins gonna affect the team? I think he can affect them in a massive way. I think they can not only have a better season win-wise than last year, but I mean, if all things go the way that if they stay healthy, I mean, they could be contending for a bowl game this year. I don't know if that's bold to say, too bold to say, especially as an employee now of UNM. But I mean, there's belief in that locker room. They can do that. And Dylan Hopkins for sure will have to set the tone. Think they've got a guy that can make all the throws in all situations. You know, your first, second, third, and even fourth and short situations. He's a talent. He's got an arm, but I think more importantly, he's got the respect of his teammates. And I think the sky's the limit with him this year.
I think I've seen that, and I interviewed him in Vegas at Mountain West Conference Media Days. And it's a side note. He seems like he's got a sense of humor. Not that leads a football team. Leads a football team to wins, but
no, it matters a lot. And honestly, like the guys that want to get mic'd up the most, like I've only been here for 2 weeks with the Lobos, and I'm already getting guys coming up to me asking if they can be mic'd up because they see their teammates on social media and how much fun that is. And I think guys want to show that part of their personality. Dylan was the first person we mic'd up, and if you've seen it, the clip we posted, he didn't even say a lot. Like in the mic'd up, because I only mic'd them up for like 15 minutes, so you only get a small portion of their practice and what's going on. But he doesn't have to say a lot. He doesn't. I think something I really have enjoyed about Dylan so far, getting to know him, is he doesn't take this whole thing too seriously. Like he's a Division I starting quarterback coming into a brand new school, which could be a lot of pressure for people to handle. And I think Dylan's just kind of took it all in stride. That's why they sent him to media days in front of all of the media. out in Vegas in front of all these different TV markets. Yeah, I think he's a cool customer. I think he's got a lot of composure to him, not just from a football sense, but from a teammate sense. And I think guys really like playing with him. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
You don't send a transfer you don't send transfer anybody to those media days. I had learned that.
Yeah.
When I was there, and I thought that was pretty for him to be there was awesome. I don't know. I enjoyed talking to him, and adding to the Hard Knocks. Yeah, mic me up. The Lobos lost some key contributors on defense, and obviously the big news over the year was defensive coordinator, former UNM head football coach Rocky Long. He went to Syracuse at the age of 75.
Still rocking and rolling. How about Rocky, man? He is, man. He's one of a kind.
Yeah, I'm not trying to give Barstool Sports a shout out here. The one thing I do listen to from Barstool Sports is their college football podcast called Necessary or Unnecessary Roughness. Because Brandon, if you've never heard the name, it's probably on Twitter, Brandon Walker. He just cracks me up. But they mentioned they were doing an ACC preview, and they brought up that Rocky was going back to, or Rocky took the job at Syracuse, and the other co-host Casey Smith kind of like laughed, and I was like, if he's still as sharp as, I'm defending him there, and I'm kind of like, if he's still as sharp as he is, and how good that defense was the last 2 years, regardless of the scoreboard, I know you can throw that out. God, I'm sounding like a homer, but like I don't know, man. And Syracuse ripped off 6 straight last year. I guess that's what Dino Babbers was looking for. Like, that's what they want. And that's what I think Syracuse can thrive. I don't know. That's what Dino Babbers was looking for. But to the question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was getting you off track. So you're talking about the departures on the defensive side.
Yeah, the departures. So what do you think we will see from Danny putting his stamp on the defense this season? Because at least what I've seen at practice is he's completely with the defense, and it seems like Brian Vincent might be just kind of running the offensive show. I know Danny has the last say, but what do you take away from that, and how good might this unit be with Danny calling the defense?
Yeah, I think that they potentially won't skip a beat with and you got to remember, we have to mention Troy Reffitt taking over as a defensive coordinator, who learned a lot under Coach Long during his current tenure with the Lobos, because he's coached around the country, and he was with the Lobos years ago. I think Coach Reffitt and Coach G will not skip a beat with the defense. But I mean, look, you have to address, losing one of the great defensive minds in college football history in Rocky Long. I mean, that's a big loss. That is a big loss. And then you talk about Cody Moon and Deion Hunter transferring. Cody, I think, was the bigger surprise of, I mean, look, in the transfer portal world, almost nothing's a surprise anymore with everybody moving around schools as often as they do. But Cody, being a local guy who started as a walk-on, earned a scholarship, and really developed into an all-conference player. I think at the linebacker core is where you have to be curious. How do they look coming back? But you bring back someone like Ray Luatele, who is, I think, an emerging star as far as Mountain West linebackers go. If he comes back healthy, they don't skip a beat. I think Cy Riley is fantastic in the linebacking core. Defensive line, it's been a struggle after Joey Noble left. They really struggled to find a guy last year that can just get you a sack when you really, really need one. So who can emerge this year and be that guy? There's a lot of talent. They're very young. I think they've been really young at a lot of positions. Defensive line may have been one of the youngest units because they've just been trying to develop the high school and JUCO guys that they were bringing in. I'm really excited to see Bryce Santana, Tyler Keeney, who started his college career at UCLA, then came back home to New Mexico, both Los Lunas products. I think the offense has a lot of eyes on them because you bring in a new OC and a proven quarterback. And I think they're getting a little juice from practices. I think they're impressing people with the way they've been able to move the ball in training camp. But yeah, defensively, they're going to have as much to prove as anything because you lose someone like Rocky Long, even though Coach G and Troy Reffitt are in his coaching tree, and they know that defense inside and out as well. I think they're going to feel like they have something to prove as much as anybody. Coach G and Coach Reffitt coaching that defense, because this will be their first years at this current run with the Lobos without Coach Long, because Coach Long came back here when Coach G took the job as the head coach. So I think there's a lot to prove on both sides of the ball for sure. I mean, when you win just 2 games in a year, you're going to have a ton to prove, top to bottom. And I don't think Coach G and Coach Reffitt are excluded from that. I think everyone's got a lot to prove.
You can only go up from winning 2 games. That's like a huge bonus. Looking at it that way, that's a positive thing. And I made a mistake there. I don't know who's calling the defense. I kind of just assumed Danny was, but it's no disrespect to defensive coordinator Troy Reffitt. My next question for you is, and you brought up the tight ends, and I noticed this guy at the first practice I went to, and he's got the name. And 2, he's 6'6", 250. And I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But when I've seen him and when I've been at practice, for some reason I've been around the tight ends. But Magnus Gears, he's like, the way I look at him, he looks like Swiss UNM Gronk. He's from Zurich.
Yeah, he's got Gronk-like features at 6'6".
Yes.
Yeah, he's a monster.
I just looked at him and I was just like, he just looks like Swiss UNM Gronk. Anyway, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mentioned the tight ends earlier. I've got high hopes for that group because they can affect the run game with their size, and if they learn the blocking schemes that the O-line and tight end coaches are showing, and their new offensive coordinator is establishing. I mean, the reason why UAB had such a good offense last year is because the running game really set the tone for Dylan Hopkins to operate. And I'll say it again, Trace Bruckler, to me, if he stays healthy and he's not a all conference player in some fashion on one of those teams, I'd be pretty shocked because he's a receiver converted to tight end. So he's got excellent receiving skills. But he's also the smartest tight end they have. He knows how to come off the blocks and find a seam, find a route for a quick first down. I mean, they got Connor Whithoff, who's got a couple years under his belt. They've got Caleb Mara, who was a state champion at La Cueva, Everett Hunter. I mean, this is how many? That is a lot of tight ends they have. What, almost 10 tight ends? That's a pretty deep group for Division I football team, as far as I can tell. But yeah, Magnus is huge. You got Max Lansk. I'm probably butchering the kid from Germany. 2 international players that I've already seen make an impact on that group, not just from a football standpoint, but 2 dudes that really fit into their culture and really fit into just like the outlook of the team. I'm telling you, the tight end group for sure is underrated, and I think super, super talented and has a lot of potential to make some noise.
Brandon, one of the things you mentioned was Dylan Hopkins. He's won 19 games as a starter. He's bringing in Brian Vincent, the offensive coordinator from UAB, who's coming with them. It's a whole new offensive system. One of the things you mentioned about Miles Kendrick and Terry Wilson, I didn't think Miles Kendrick was an option quarterback. I didn't think the system fit him. Then you mentioned the offensive line and then the lack of playmakers. They have Luke Wysong and a few others, but not a lot of the guys are going for chunk yards or big explosive plays. Now, we're expecting something much different with Dylan Hopkins at quarterback and Coach Vincent's new offensive system. But the Lobos have had traditionally problems keeping quarterbacks upright. They've had problems with injuries the last couple of years. Has anyone emerged from the quarterback pool to be the backup to Dylan Hopkins, which is an important position? He's talked about some quarterbacks in camp. Coach Gonzales has. Has there been that guy that Coach Gonzales is just in case Dylan hopefully stays healthy the whole season? But just in case he doesn't, is there that guy that's going to step in if he does get hurt?
Yeah, because you bring in someone like Dylan Hopkins, who once he went through spring ball, it was basically set in stone. Okay, he's QB1. Coach Vincent is certainly trying to figure out who's QB2 and 3 right now. That's been his biggest thing from the quarterback group. He's trying to figure out, along with getting Dylan and the rest of the first teamers on the same page. Devin Dampier, freshman out of Arizona, who was a state player of the year. DC Tabscott, who was a transfer from Appalachian State. They've gotten the most reps in the 2-3 group. And I think Devin Dampier has really been impressing people because he was a true freshman. Excuse me, he was still a high school senior when they were in spring ball, and he enrolled early to come participate in spring ball, and looked like he belonged. It did not look like a high school kid. Yeah, Devin's definitely been impressing. DC's in that mix for sure. He's getting a lot of reps with the 2s and 3s. This last scrimmage, I think, was really focused on the 2s and the 3s, top to bottom, for the offensive and defense. I think the Lobos feel pretty good about who the ones are, but yeah, the quarterbacks included, they're trying to figure out who's 2s and 3s. And Devin Dampier, if I had to guess, has the edge for the 2. He seems to be getting more reps with the 2s. But DC's in that mix too. He's a big, talented arm. All of these guys, this quarterback group, when you talk about Hopkins, Dampier, Tabscott, and then you have Justin Holiday, who comes back from last year, Aiden Armenta, Isaiah Chavez. That's a group that's pretty tight. I have yet to see one of those guys on their own around the team facility. They go everywhere together. They do everything together. They literally wait for each other to walk into practice together. They've got that kind of camaraderie. Yeah, Devin Dampier, DC Tabscott have been getting the most with the 2s and 3s. And I think if we were going into the A&M game this week, Devin Dampier probably has the edge on 2, but Coach Vincent's very much, letting them ride out that competition and giving everybody as much reps as they can and trying to figure that out going into A&M.
What happens there? This is a long answer. We'll take your short one, but how's the transfer portal and the NIL change college athletics? It's a huge. New Mexico, you mentioned 42 new players on their roster. So it's a long answer for sure, but we'll take your short version on this one.
Yeah, I mean, transfer portal, I think, has had a bigger impact on New Mexico as a whole. Football, basketball, and all the other sports that they get a lot of transfers. Women's basketball, soccer. Women's soccer is seeing a lot of transfers. Now, cross country had a coaching change, so I think they are almost bringing in a whole nother team. I mean, every sport, volleyball, softball, baseball, every single sport is being affected by the transfer portal more than NIL, at least at this point. And I know Kurt Roth and the 505 Ventures group are doing a lot of exciting things, and they're trying to pump up the NIL effect in Albuquerque. But I think that's going to take more time for that to have a big effect on the whole landscape of college sports in Albuquerque and at UNM. But yeah, the transfer portal for sure has had the bigger impact. I mean, like we talked about, Coach Gonzales has the most newcomers he's ever had in his coaching career. And I think after 2020 and 2021, even to an extent 2022, they recruited a lot of high school kids. And this is the first year going into the 2020-23 season, they made a big emphasis on the transfer portal and finding the JUCO kids that still had 3, sometimes even 4 years of eligibility, depending on their COVID eligibility situation. But more so the D1 transfers. I mean, they've had guys this season come in from Nebraska, TCU, UAB, Appalachian State, lots of Power 5, D1 transfers. Yeah, it's the transfer portal for sure. Number one, head and shoulders above anything else, NIL included. But I do give credit to anyone that is involved, local businesses or corporations out here that are trying to stir up some NIL opportunities, because I mean, there's a lot of student athletes on the football team, basketball team, other sports that are bringing in, you know, a lot of business for the Lobos and are deserving of of earning some NIL stuff, and it's long overdue, for us to finally be talking this way about NIL legal, money for athletes to be earning, because they've certainly deserved it for a long time, way before I was a college athlete or any of us were college athletes. It should have been a thing a long time ago, and thankfully it is now.
It took off in a big way, and you're absolutely right about that. We've got one last question for you. And Coach Gonzales, he seems optimistic about this season. Every time we see him talk, he's a stronger team, more athletic, twitchy, faster. When I hear those things as a Lobo fan, as Brian said, since 70, I'm getting like, okay, great, sounds good. But do you share that optimism yourself after what you've seen? You mentioned Hard Knocks. You're there in the huddles. You see a lot of things. You get to see an insider's view every single day of the temperature of the team, literally on the field, right? Of what's going on with the offensive unit, the defensive unit, the special teams. You mentioned the quarterbacks walking in together. You see it all, man. So do you share that same optimism?
I really do. And it's interesting now, Ed, because I'm basically part of the team. I am part of the team. I'm on the staff now as an employee, and I'm around them all the time. So, in a weird way, yeah, this is my life now. If you would have told me last year that my life would be hanging out with one team on a full-time basis, I wouldn't have believed you, because this is a really, really unique and cool opportunity to be a part of one team on a year-round basis, and learn about what this is. We're working in this kind of position with the team. Yeah, for sure, 100%. I'll say that I share the optimism, but it's because I'm part of the team now. And if I didn't believe in not only Coach G, but the culture he has, and if I didn't believe in, because look, your job, um, your job can dictate how you feel on a day-to-day basis about life, and give, come out of work in good moods and bad moods, but a lot of it has to do with who you work with, in my opinion. And I work with people that are a bunch of good dudes that are trying to build a program the right way. I think Coach Gonzales made a lot of tough decisions in his first few years. I think he had to rebuild the culture as much as anything, and he had to suspend some players for some things that other coaches I don't think would suspend players for. Coming late to meetings, coming late back from the hotel 5 minutes beyond curfew. He has set the tone from an accountability standpoint that is really admirable, because he could have not made those tough decisions and maybe won another game or two the last few years. And I really respect the way he operates. I really do. And I'm getting to know the rest of the staff now on a much more intimate basis. Because when you're only around a coach for a press conference once a week, you can only really learn so much about the way they handle a team. And now that I'm in this position where I'm around them every day, that they're in the facility, and yeah, just getting to see everything from behind the scenes, I'm really, really enjoying it. Yeah, for sure, I'm optimistic, and also I'm hopeful that they have a good year, because I see all the hard work that they're doing, and I know that yeah, it's just I know that they deserve to have a better season, but a lot of things are out of your hands. Health is out of your hands. Um, yeah, the way the schedule lines up is out of your hands, and I think they got a schedule um, that they can do some damage on. But a lot of that has to do with the Lobos continuing to work hard and continue and earning it. They haven't earned it yet. They haven't earned to win more than 2 or 3 games in Coach G's first 3 years, because it was more than just talent. Everything has to come together. They have over 100 players on that roster, and they have a brand new offensive staff. So there's a lot of hard work that goes into turning things around. And I can tell you, just from the last few weeks I've been around the team, I know that the players are working hard enough to have a turnaround season, but it's going to take more than just that for it to happen. So I'm optimistic for sure. But, I mean, I work for them now, and I'm also rooting for it to happen. So I'm just excited to be along for the ride with them this season. Yeah, I'm looking forward to September 2nd at A&M, September 9th from the home opener against Tennessee Tech, and then everything beyond that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Have you ever been in an environment like A&M before?
Yeah, I've been to Kyle Field a couple of times.
Okay.
However, I have not been there for a game, but I've been in the field. I've been in the stadium. Earlier in my career, I was working at KRGV, the ABC affiliate in South Texas. There was a kid from that area that was playing on one of the Johnny Manziel teams. So I went and did a story with him, and I was around Kyle Field right when they were rebuilding it. It's it's one of the best stadiums in the country. It really is. They invented the 12th man for a reason. It's one of the best college fan bases in the whole nation. And yeah, what a way to kick off the season. And for me, on a personal note, what a way to start my new chapter with the Lobos, going on the road somewhere like that. So I'm excited to see how everything operates, because it's much more than just the players and the staff. You have a lot of equipment managers, video crew, athletic trainers. I mean, I'm in the middle of everything. I'm working on content to actually profile not just the players and coaches, but every single department that is a part of the football operation. There's a ton of work that goes into all that. Loading up this huge semi truck that they got for the road. Working on a piece about that. So much goes into what makes a college football team tick. And my job is to try to profile and showcase as much things as I can online, and just learn, because it's my first year getting to do something like this. So I'm very, very, very thankful to Coach G for giving me the opportunity, and for honestly the players and the coaches welcoming me with open arms, because everyone has. And I think we're off to a great start together, and I'm excited to see how the season goes.
He is the new assistant director. Gosh darn it, I can't talk today. The new assistant director for creative services for football. His name is Brandon Ortega. Brandon, I figured we knew we could get you to talk, so I was really happy about that. But we really thank you for joining us here, Ed and I, on the Pit Press podcast. And obviously, we'll be talking to you throughout the season. Maybe we'll have you on again. Maybe, I don't know, sooner rather than later, or halfway through the season. But man, we thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you guys for having me. I think folks are really enjoying, and I've also enjoyed the content you guys are pumping out through the summer, and you guys are doing an awesome job. Yeah, keep up the great work. And no, it's a big honor for you guys to have me on. Thanks for having me on.
Brandon, we appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you very much.